All right, let's do this, Nick. Moonshot Dispatch, 27th of May. Big week. Bitcoin, pizza day, and also all-time high at the same time. That's pretty good. What a week to have. Then everything was pumping. Then Trump came out and said something about tariffs, and we started dumping. So short-lived, unfortunately. But there's some interesting stuff happening in Japan potentially that we've got to unpack. And despite the Trump stuff and the threatened 50% or tariff or whatever had on goods from EU, we have still seen the fear and greed index pretty toppy at 73, which have to get that explained to me as well, because I have no idea what 73 means on greed. But we're firmly in the greed territory regardless. All right, Nick, how's your week been?
Yeah, good. I think we said this last week and maybe the week before. It's fun doing these things when the price keeps going up. The office has been pretty ecstatic. Everyone has been loving it. Bitcoin pizza day. We grabbed some pizzas and, did the traditional thing that we usually do. And meanwhile, prices are going high. Obviously not in AUD terms yet. FX rates are kind of mucking around with us, which means I think, maybe $2,000 or $3,000 off all-time highs in Australian dollar terms. But US dollars, which is what everyone cares about, is where we're at.
So we saw our hope, which is pretty good. So talk us through, I guess, some of the market stuff. Was there anything in particular on Bitcoin Pizza Day that we saw sort of pushing prices higher? Or was it just kind of like people just like, you know what, it's Bitcoin Pizza Day, I'm just going to go out and buy some pizza.
Yeah.
Buy some Bitcoin.
It's fun to talk about what the parallels might be, and everyone wants to know why the price goes up and everyone wants to know why the price goes down. I guess broader sense of the topic when you're looking at the macro forces at play. Trump had done some cool negotiations with China, which was a big one. Everyone was wondering about. China was getting really angry and Trump was getting angrier, and they kind of backed away, which is cool. I don't think they came to a specific agreement, but they, agreed to disagree for a short period and while they sort themselves out. And so that was probably the major one that really had the price rolling. But something I've heard a few times now, it's, price is all-time high and it's been pretty quiet in the markets. No one's running around screaming. There's no sort of, the chart doesn't look toppy at all. It doesn't look like it's any kind of mania. Everyone's it's sort of taking it in stride at the moment and a wait and see. We hit an all-time high, of like high 111, almost 112,000 US dollars. It's awesome. Since then it has come back, you're right, but it's not much. I mean, it dropped to 107 and now it's back up to 110 odd. So
what are the lines on the page when you consulted your astrology for men charts?
No, I specifically didn't consult any astrology for men this time. I actually haven't been looking at that stuff at all. It's just, if you sort of zoom out and just look at the shape of the chart, it's not, as I said, it's not mania. It's a very orderly pump where price is just kind of grinding upwards.
A nice little orderly pump. Yeah, I noticed that because when Bitcoin was hitting all-time high, I guess, one of the things about Trump, he dominates the headlines. And so any other global news, I mean, even Emmanuel Macron getting bitch slapped by his wife out of the plane, barely copped a mention because everyone just wanted to talk about Trump and his tariffs, despite the fact that he's been jumping on this tariff, talking about that tariff, backtracking on this one. It's not like you can really trust what he says, but he just dominates the headlines. And it feels like often, even though Bitcoin's hitting a new all-time high and there's been huge inflows and there's a bunch of cool stuff happening in crypto, fighting for mainstream press headlines is really difficult at the moment.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not if you're Trump, right?
Unless you're Trump.
And he's perfected the art of dominating these headlines. The trades, I mean, the other trade stuff that happened as well, you were kind of alluding to, is the European Union stuff. So there was a bit of a, Trump spat the dummy and said, right, that's it. We're not waiting for you guys to do it. You're taking too long, and he demanded 50% tariffs on with no waiting period, and everyone's like, oh God, here he goes again. By the way, I'm just, this is my not anti-Trump, but I always seem to have a little spit at Trump. He's done this whole thing. Then what was her name? Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commissioner president. She gave him a phone call and just patted his back a little bit, soothed his sore tummy. Maybe she popped the dummy back in, and they're all good now. So
Trump a good boy. Good boy, Trump.
So he was like, all right, fine. We can wait till July 9th or whenever the original timeline was for organising these tariffs, and they're back down to 20% or whatever it is, or 10%. Yeah, so that thing kind of has been smoothed over as well. But as you say, like it's a classic boy that cries wolf kind of situation. The more often he flip-flops, the less people are going to believe him until at some point it's just going to be not a news issue at all.
Yeah, he's going to come out one day and just bring in 1 billion% tariff, and they'll be like, okay,
Yeah, right,
you know, the 1 billion% tariff is not that big a tariff these days, Donald.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, we've got to head to the news. All right, first on the headlines this week. So this is one from Cointelegraph. Let's have a chat about it. Japan and sovereign risk, and this is an interesting one. So Japan, okay. So Andre, I can't pronounce that name.
Yeah.
Andre Dragosh links the rising Japanese bond yields to increase Bitcoin flows. So this is fascinating for the fact that sort of investors are reportedly viewing BTC as a hedge against inflation. Obviously, the one thing that the crypto guys have been saying for a long time is there is no counterparty risk, well, not in the traditional sense at least, to Bitcoin. And that's kind of gaining a fresh narrative and traction in Asia. So what are we seeing now?
Yeah, I think this is sort of something that, you know, the Bitcoin guys have been crying for literally years is, you know, we're trying to make Bitcoin, you know, this inflation hedge. The argument this guy's trying to make is that it's also a hedge against instability in a government. So, you know, what Trump is doing is a classic example where he's, you know, making all these policy changes and clearly showing everyone that there's no sort of deep thought that goes into a lot of these things, unless it's this 4D chess, which some people are claiming, and you know, who knows, maybe it's true. Seems to be paying off so far, vaguely. But with Japan, yeah, they're, you know, so their 30-year bond rates are at 3.1% or something like that. It's basically all-time highs. And you compare that against, you know, the US 30-year, which is at 4.6 or something at the same time. It's up to 5 now even. And you know, you think, okay, so Japan aren't doing that badly, but then you look at the debt to GDP ratio, and things just suddenly get clear. So the comparison here is Germany at the same time. This is back in, I think, November, the numbers they're looking at. But Germany had the same kind of 30-year bond rate, like the yield on the 30-year bond as Japan did, at around 3.1%, and their debt to GDP ratio is 63%. And Japan's is 250%. So
wow,
you can't. Like, this is stupid numbers.
Do you think we could see Japan sort of leading, I guess, the next wave of Bitcoin adoption?
Well, yeah. I mean, like Japan's a big market, and because of this classic, you know, this carry trade that people have been doing on their currency for so long, they're very well integrated. So when things, you know, if things start going sideways in Japan, that's going to have effects everywhere else too.
Yeah.
And everyone's been calling for things in Japan to go sideways for a while now, just because of the weird way that they handle their currency, and you know, control the yield curve and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I mean, Japan's is just looking kind of dodgy, and this guy is basically saying, look, it's uncertain now. Even the financial minister or whatever in Japan is saying, you know, we're in trouble. Our economy is worse than Greece at the moment. It's just, you know, not good news because Greece isn't a great economy historically. So yeah, everyone's sort of going, okay, well, maybe that's the reason why Bitcoin has been doing pretty well over the last, you know, few weeks.
It's incredible. Do you think we could see a world in the not too distant future where the bond market looks less safe than the crypto market?
Well, I mean, I guess like when you start talking hyperinflation and complete distrust in a currency, you know, US have been kicking the can down the road for so long now and just continually printing more money, raising the debt ceiling, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, I mean, what do you trust more in the end? Do you trust code? Do you trust the ability for the Bitcoin developers not to get co-opted in some fashion and make changes that we somehow don't understand? Or, I don't know, this is a deep question.
It's a deep question.
Yeah, maybe.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot to think about on there. I mean, I guess, you know, the narrative around Bitcoin being the gold 2.0, it's probably never looked truer. But watch that space. There's obviously some huge developments. It seems like it's still, there's a lot to go before we kind of saw some kind of flippening of the bond in the crypto world. I can only imagine.
I know a lot of guys who are looking that for the bond market to start getting priced in Bitcoin, which is another thing there's not going to happen anytime soon. But you know, if it does, then you have like 0.0001 of a Bitcoin and you're set for life, kind of thing.
Correct.
Just the numbers involved.
Yeah. Which I'll talk about buying Bitcoin in a second because I've got a story. I've actually got, funnily enough, a positive news story about the banks and crypto.
Okay.
Sure? Am I sure? Well, we'll see.
Never before.
I'll let you be the judge, Nick. Because I'm not here to have opinions. I'm here to ask you the questions, so I can be told what to think. It's much easier when someone else does the thinking. Crypto funds see 3.6 billion or 3.3 billion in inflows. ETH surging, XRP is taking a dive. This is from CoinShares Weekly. So what are we seeing this week? Weekly inflows into crypto, into crypto funds, 3.3 billion US. That's pretty huge. 10 billion globally for year to date. So that's a big week, I guess, percentage-wise. And ETH saw its best performance in 15 years after the ETH Whisperer, IU, had been talking about the Pectra upgrade, and there's been nothing but up since. And XRP saw a record of 3.7 million in outflows amid SEC legal uncertainty. Plenty of stuff there. How do we make sense of that?
I mean, so the way I look at this one is, all the good news that we were talking about last week is kind of, it doesn't happen instantly and it takes a little time to come home. And this is the result. So we see these huge inflows into the ETFs. People get super excited about different cryptos. Everyone's obviously listening to the Moonshot Dispatch and heard me talk about Ethereum, so they're buying the Ethereum one. It's all cool stuff. I guess the interesting parts for me that I was looking at on this one is the XRP outflows. It sounds bad. It's the biggest outflow ever.
It's not that much, though.
I mean, what's the biggest outflow ever? Decidedly,
I take that back.
I don't know what the absolute number, or the absolute number is 37 million or whatever, but whether or not it's a big number or not is kind of irrelevant. It's just it's a record for the outflows, but you have to sort of put it in context that they've had something like 80 weeks of non-stop inflows. Like it's just been this huge bull run for the XRP funds. There's no XRP ETF yet, so we're not technically talking about ETF here, but so XRP, it's not, on the face of it, it's not good news, but really they've had an incredible run so far, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. The other thing that took my attention here, one more thing we were talking about before, why is Bitcoin price rising? The article here suggests that it has to do with the Moody downgrade in credit. We talked about this last week. So
yes.
The US have been downgraded to AA1 from AAA, and people sort of think, like the Japan situation, well, we've got a less stable currency. It's
where do we go?
What can we do with our money? Gold is boring, so we buy Bitcoin, which is a cool new thing. But otherwise, so the US had $3.2 billion of inflow in the ETFs. The next highest intake was Germany with $41 million. Just think about the difference there.
Huge.
Like the US is just killing it.
It still swamps it, doesn't it? It still swamps
it. And it's just clearly to me they've pushed ahead and been really public with the ability for the ETF vehicles to hold spot crypto. So, they're taking the lead as they sort of proclaimed they would. Anyway,
it's really it does go to show again just how much some regulatory or some legal, some I guess government level certainty, clarity can give to investors. But then again, that said, the home of formation globally is still the US, and you'd expect whatever asset class to really, if the US isn't leading it, it's kind of a blip somewhere else. That's what I mean? Just because there is so much capital there and all that kind of stuff. All right, but it's still, it's fascinating to sort of see that Bitcoin continues to just build this narrative, and so many more people. I guess the collective awareness of like some of those properties that the Bitcoiners and the maximalists have been saying for so long. It's now just sort of creeping over into the mainstream consciousness about the no counterparty risk, the digital gold aspect, the infinite, the finite supply, all these things. All of a sudden, they're like, oh, maybe those guys they're onto something. You know what I mean? It's just a little bit spilling over in the narrative now.
I'm really waiting for it to be at a party and someone to come up to me and go, have you heard of this thing called Bitcoin? He's like, telling me about it. I'm like, tell me more. Explain it to me.
Yeah, well, Independent Reserve celebrated last week in Singapore, so it's 12. Well, Independent Reserve celebrated its 12-year anniversary as well. It's been around for 12 years in crypto. Is a long time. That's like
positively
50 years, regular years outside of crypto. And I was reflecting on this. I saw a post from Lasanka Pereira. And I was reflecting on the first time I actually met Lasanka. It was actually in 2016 when I was working a TradFi job, and he pitched my old firm to push Bitcoin. And, the Bitcoiners have been saying the same thing about Bitcoin forever, really. It just took a while for the rest of us to kind of get with the program. And I was just sort of saying, I still remember that conversation. I wish I had. I listened to him, but I wish I had listened even more. And he's like, "Do you remember that you, after my presentation, you promptly kicked us out of your office?"
Get out.
Sorry, LP. Anyway, all's well that ends well, and it's been fascinating, I guess, just to watch. Everything he said was then is. I mean, it's true then. It's true now. It's just that those viewpoints are now being, I guess, like I said before, they're spilling over into the collective consciousness of the investment community as a whole, after being, I guess, shunned for so many years. All right, next one to jump onto. So Hong Kong gives, we've got another one here from the SCMP in Hong Kong. Stablecoin bill went through, so the Telegram, let me slow down, the Coin Telegraph, saying that HK is to license stablecoin issuers. I know we've talked on Hong Kong kind of leading the space and, the development of regulatory certainty and all this kind of stuff. So the details are the Legislative Council passed a bill to license fiat-backed stablecoin issuers. I guess they're bringing in things like strict compliance on AML, redemptions and fiat reserves and all this kind of stuff. So giving some clarity about how, I guess, the issuance of these things will take place. With retail investors will be able to trade licensed stablecoins later this year. So I guess that does provide a real pathway to a lot of adoption as more and more people see it as just a commonplace, everyday item. Dare I say boring?
Yeah, basically. I mean, the perfect scenario is when people don't even realize they're using crypto, but it's still, under the hood, it's making their lives better. I mean, there's not much to talk about this one. This is kind of similar to the Genius Act, I guess, where it's just stable coin regulation. The thing that caught my eye, they want to, I feel like every sort of government wants to bring their own version or acronym or something when we've already got names for all the stuff that they're talking about. So
I know, right.
In Singapore, it's like a DPT, a digital payment token or something. It's just a cryptocurrency. In here, they're calling, instead of saying stablecoin, they're calling it an FRS, a fiat referenced stablecoin. So they're all fiat that's what it's. I mean, I guess you can technically get a gold stablecoin, but it's not called a stablecoin then. It's So anyway, that was this one. But
the same thing happened. Look, we had when blockchain first came in, it was it was like, crypto, can't call it crypto anymore. Or blockchain, it's a little bit better. Then when blockchain became a little bit of dirty word, DLT.
Yeah,
hey,
that's right.
And I got DLT. At first we had NFTs. Oh no, they're no good. But RWAs.
Yeah.
Hey.
That's so true. Actually.
See what I'm saying?
Yeah. No.
Just keep changing the name until it's something really boring.
This is like what global warming and climate change. Yeah. They do it everywhere, I guess. Yeah. It's not just crypto.
Just keep changing the name until it becomes acceptable, I guess. Okay, so perhaps let me ask you a question then. Do you think Hong Kong is becoming the place for a regulatory model for stablecoins?
I think they're definitely trying to be. I mean, Hong Kong sort of historically has been where, the more risky kind of stuff out of China happens, I guess. Mm-hmm. So it might just be sort of a test bed for how it all works. Mm-hmm. The the bill that they're proposing, the legislation that's gone through seems reasonable. Mm-hmm. One thing that caught my eye though was the guy who's doing it, Johnny Ying. He talks about how issuers will be distributing interest to holders.
Okay.
So,
I guess with Tether, for example.
No, Tether don't distribute.
No. So, for example, they collect the dollars, they hold the dollars, but then they keep the interest themselves.
Yes. So
whereas this is going, we'll.
Yeah. So I guess there'll be some kind of maybe a mandated percentage of interest earned gets sent back to the holders, which is kind of cool. Good way to sort of, get adoption going, and he alludes to the fact that if they can get widespread adoption, then that'll create this stability in the stablecoin market, which I guess is true. But I thought that was kind of interesting because a lot of the regulatory bodies have shied away from any kind of yield earning stuff. It's a bit too spicy for them, and they might have to think about it a bit longer before making a decision. But these guys are sort of right from the outset seem to be going, look, we want to make this fair. We want to, these guys, the issuers are earning all this money on your dollars, so they should probably be paying some back.
Some back, yeah, which is interesting, right? So do you think this is sort of breed, I guess, more trust in the system? Will this government backing of crypto lead to more adoption, or is?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, just look at Singapore as an example. The government, set out a bunch of rules and regulations on how, crypto is dealt with, and boom, Singapore is this huge crypto hub now. I guess Hong Kong and Dubai, for example, are looking at that and going, we should get a piece of that pie.
Yeah.
And doing something similar, because it's the way to do it, right? When investors have clarity on how, how the crypto is going to be handled, etc., then they're much more likely to invest.
100%. All right, so here's another good one. So US major banks, so this is the Wall Street Journal reporting, the banks having, I guess, various stablecoin projects. So the major US banks may launch joint stablecoin projects to stay competitive. All right, so this is a really fascinating one. So JP Morgan, Citibank, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo are reportedly discussing a unified stablecoin. This is like a private money, I guess, in a certain way. It's
Maybe.
Not really. It's a private crypto token backed with US dollars, I guess.
So the key word in what you said before is may, in that reportedly no one's agreeing. So all of the banks have not responded for comment. There's nothing set down on paper. So this is an interesting one, and it makes sense to me.
It's from the Wall Street Journal, though. It's not from...
Yeah, I mean,
me and
Nick's,
Nick's opinion book.
Yeah, but it may not be, but there's still no quotes.
We've got plenty of good stories to come from
There's
that.
no quotes from banks. There's no, nothing, no documentation you can refer to or press releases or anything like that. It's all just rumors and hearsay at the moment. But I mean, the idea makes sense to me logically. This genius stablecoin bill is likely to get through, I think. And so what are the banks going to do? Well, they don't want Tether and USDC just taking it all. So it makes sense for them to try and do something to get a piece of that pie. But how do they pry people out of the Tether and USDC ecosystems? They have to offer something that those guys don't. And maybe they offer them yield. I doubt it. I'm guessing Genius. I don't know if the regulation is there yet to do that, but they'll need to do something that differentiates them from USDC and Tether, because USDC and Tether are so integrated into all of the crypto systems now. Yeah. And people are already using it so heavily for remittance. To get everyone to flip over to this new stablecoin, I don't know. It's an uphill battle, so they'll have to do something.
Yeah. Well, quite interestingly, saw some reports about, tokenized versions of shares being traded on exchanges in the US, right? And I wonder, there is a whole segment out there. So I guess when you're targeting the crypto native players, and you mentioned sort of the crypto native people, but there is still a lot of people out there who are probably would happily move into crypto, but they want to stick with their trusted names. Do you know? And they're happy if they're like Wells Fargo's doing it, or if our Bank of America is doing it. I guess this is just safer because they know those names, they trust those names. So you think just on that, but if they could, and I guess the challenge for a lot of these banks and institutions is they need the expertise and the ability to execute on one of these crypto projects, right? Maybe they obviously have the resources, but do they have the talent or do they have the expertise to kind of catch up with the existing incumbents to access and provide something to that? I guess a lot of these people who aren't currently using crypto will probably start using it at some point, and they're going, well, shit. Perhaps we can, if they're going to use it anyway, we may as well try and offer them something to compete. We have to try something. I don't know. It's a good one to think about, I guess. But like I said, can banks actually pull off working a better stablecoin solution?
I mean, because as I say, we know nothing about this supposed project.
I want to know your opinion on this, Nick.
Yeah, do they use Ethereum? Do they use their own private blockchain? We just don't know anything about it. So there's so many unknowns. To me, it does. I guess it makes sense. So in Australia, for example, I'm just thinking sort of back to first principles. It doesn't really make sense to have something like this because we've got a really good banking system. We've got this MPP system that allows you to transfer instantly 24/7. It's as good as crypto, basically, for the purpose of moving money around.
Except if I want to buy meme coins.
Yes, well, I'm just talking about paying, you pay your mate for a pizza or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the US, I don't think it's as simple. Like their system, they don't have anything like MPP.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Aware. So maybe a stable coin internally to the US does make sense. In Australia, stablecoins make much more sense for international remittance, where you want to transfer something internationally over, across borders. Then stablecoins are awesome. They're so quick. They're instantly settled, etc.
What about for others? Let's say, for example, we start seeing a lot more international commerce. So I can envision a world where somebody wants to sell, say, into the US market or sell into Asia or whatnot. And right now, let's say, for example, I want to sell, I'm making Kubra hats, good ones, obviously. And I want to sell them into Vietnam or somewhere, right, or somewhere around the world. I mean, the only way I can kind of sell international commerce at anywhere right now would be to have some form of banking system and rely on an FX provider. And if I want to sell into a particular economy like somewhere in Southeast Asia, like it's really expensive because of the transaction fees. And though if I wanted to set up an online commerce business and I had just an integrated sort of crypto payment provider straight away, day one, that market now I can sell something to anyone in the world without even needing to have like a credit card provider or some kind of FX. I can just accept crypto.
Yeah, so I agree.
And so, oh, sorry, go ahead. Oh, well.
I was just going to say at that point, I agree with what you're saying, but why would you use a stable coin issued by banks in America if you're a Vietnamese person buying from an Australian?
Well, this is kind of
just be using Tether or USDC for that.
Well, this is where I'm saying, like, if you're a bank and you go, I can see a world in which a lot more business is going to develop, which no longer needs banks, right? You would want to slice of that growing business. So there is what currently is, but you might say, hey, there's going to be so much more business that they're just not even going to, we won't even know about it because we just don't have an offering that they're going to be interested in, right? Yeah. And so if you're a bank, you're going, well, right now, I don't know what proportion of the global economy or trade or whatever is done in crypto to crypto, where people are just selling stuff to people in Vietnam and Australia just using crypto. Some's happening, which is a lot more than a couple of years ago when it was zero, but in, I don't know, 10, 15 years' time, it might represent a really significant portion. So if I was a bank going, well, we might not even be involved in any of that, like...
Yeah, no, 100%. I absolutely agree with that. Yeah, they're trying to get a piece of the pie, even if it's sort of not necessarily like the use case at the moment doesn't really touch them. You know, in your example of two other people wanting to use a stable coin and the US dollar, you know, pegged stable coin makes sense, but there's no reason to use a bank thing, like a bank stable coin, bank issue stable coin. But yeah, if they don't build it, then they've got no chance of getting any of the pie. So,
yeah, correct. Yeah. So that's again. All right. So this one's going to ruffle some feathers. Nick, get ready to ruffle some feathers of the SUI maxis out there. So SUI Hack revives old debate about decentralisation and censorship. So a little bit of context here. Who's reporting this one, by the way? The Block. Okay, the Block and Decrypt are both reporting on this one. So SUI's CETAS DEX lost 220 million in an exploit. That's no good. The move raised questions, but I guess the move raised questions over decentralisation and censorship resistance because, correct me if I'm wrong, but there was like some censorship of transactions that took place in this. So when they got back some of the money, the validators froze 162 million of that 220 million exports, which raises the question about censorship and all that kind of stuff. If it's censorable, then is it really great?
Yeah. No, it's so the first thing they do is people start shouting about the Ethereum DAO hack, which for those of you who don't remember, like back in 2016, there was a hack that lost 30 odd million Ethereum, something like that. And they, after a bunch of umming and ahhing, they decided to literally roll back the blockchain and go, actually, the hack didn't happen. And so all of the hacked Ethereum tokens just got moved back to the DAO, which is this like set of smart contracts.
Yep.
And the attacker got nothing. But then there was a bunch of sort of diehard purists who said, no, this is not right. The blockchain can't be rolled back. It's the whole point. And so they continued on the other blockchain, which did have the hack.
Right.
And that's what turned into Ethereum Classic, if any of you have heard of Ethereum Classic. So Ethereum Classic, if you look at the blockchain history, that, you know, the DAO was hacked in that blockchain. But in Ethereum that we know, there was no DAO hack because it got rolled back. But people are, you know, calling it the same thing. It's absolutely not. So what's happened in this, or what the proposal is in this one is, well, first of all, there's two parts to this. One, they froze as you said, they froze the remaining funds that they could, 162 mil worth of various tokens that were hacked. The freeze happened not because they rolled anything back or, you know, there was some kind of centralized step in, but they basically put the call out to the validators and said, hey, here's 3 addresses that are clearly the attacker. Just blacklist them in your validator. So any transactions that have anything to do with those addresses, just don't process them, basically. And so the super majority, which is something like over 2/3 of the SUI validators, agreed to do that. So they got a super majority, which means none of those transactions could ever see the light of day. Now they've got a second sort of proposal, which is to do a bunch of upgrades to the protocol to allow the stolen funds that remain to be sent back to the owners of the stolen funds. SUI guys themselves have been they've been very careful to sort of distance themselves from the idea that this is a centralized rollback. And like if you look at the tweet, it's got all of these very specific words kind of showing that they're not, in control here, and this is all decentralized governance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the proposal basically says, look, we want to return the money to the people who lost it. SUI guys have said, okay, we're kind of okay with this, but on two conditions. One, they're not going to vote on the proposal, so they have no say in whether it goes forward or not. And two, the CETUS DEX has to work on creating a fund to make all of their users whole at some point in the future. So a way to make sure that, even though they lost, whatever it was, 42 or something mil, no, more than that, 60 something mil already, that'll get recovered and everyone will be made whole.
Yeah, right.
What interests me though is how, so they managed to get away with 60 mil. I guess they bridged it out and sold it on Ethereum or something, but why only 60? Why, was there a lack of liquidity on the bridges? Not quite sure why they just stopped at 60. Why wouldn't you just do it all? I'm guessing, I mean, like 220 mil is a big number to do. So, but it would have taken a while to organising all the validators to put a little patch in to blacklist these addresses. And
I'm not sure.
Yeah, but anyway, so it's not like the DAO hack that happened. The proposal isn't like the DAO hack, but it does have centralised vibes to it. Where they're like, we'll just do something here that means crypto that's on this wallet is now on this wallet. I was like, I don't want someone doing that to my wallet.
This is the line. I mean, okay, sure, you could say there's justification that they did it for a good thing, but it's censorship all the same, is it not?
I mean, it is absolutely. I mean, that's what a blacklist is. It is censorship. But I think the point that they're trying to make here is that the SUI governance community have all voted in the same way on this. And they're all like, what, SUI's not stepping in here and making a captain's call on what to do. It's just the rest of network. Everyone's sort of getting involved. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's what happened with the FDAO. I don't actually remember the details around that part, but everyone still had a big whinge about that. But that was different, I guess, because it's a rollback. It's a different kind of proposal.
Gotcha. All right. Okay. So I guess it's kind of censorship, but like community driven. It's more like community lynching.
The fact is, there's a clear.
It wasn't capital punishment. Yeah.
Attacking a vulnerability in the protocol and stealing funds. Like, I don't think that's in contention. So they're trying to save. They're trying to say, like, people are trying to get saved from losing money. I think that's fair. I don't think you can really complain about that.
The good citizens of SUI just got their pitchforks out and went after the baddies. Good. All right. Trump. Look, time for a bit of Trump. Jared's licking his lips, waiting for some clips of Nick saying something controversial.
Yeah, gosh.
Okay, so this is being reported by The Guardian and CoinDesk. Okay, so Trump's meme coin dinner sparks legal and ethical backlash. Oh, this is we're wading into a minefield here. Trump hosted a dinner for 220 Trump token holders worth 148 million. I assume the Trump token collectively was worth 480 million. Lawmakers want the Department of Justice to investigate for potential corruption and misuse of power. Allegations include trading fees, foreign influence, and illegal use of the seal. Okay, so some of these questions, I mean, I don't. What happens when meme coins meet presidential politics? Here we are.
Well, so far, not great things. Trump has obviously, like everyone, well, if you don't know, Trump released his own meme coin called Trump. His wife released her own meme coin, I think called Melania.
It was like 2 days later or something.
Yeah, hasn't been, a great showing. And they made a bunch of money off that, and now he's sort of invited all of these people to a dinner. And I guess because, there's
First question then, Nick, how was the dinner?
No, I didn't go. I declined. So he's invited sort of all the people who hold the most of his meme coin to a dinner. He claims that it's in like his personal time, so it's nothing like this is outside of his presidential duties, which is probably the right thing to say. I don't know. I think you see, so that they don't know who went to this dinner. There was some people they literally saw coming out of, the place that they had the dinner at that they could see. So Justin Sun from Tron, for example. But there was some people who were literally hiding their face, like put masks on and stuff, because they didn't want to be known that they were at this dinner.
Wow.
And Trump hasn't released the invite list, and of course he hasn't.
Just like Epstein, the Epstein files.
Yeah. I mean, so you've got a bunch of people going to this dinner. You'd wonder what... So what they're accusing him of doing here is basically these people come to this dinner, they give him gifts, they pay him a bunch of money or whatever, and then that's illegal. You're not allowed, as a president, you're not allowed to accept gifts unless it's approved by Congress from foreign people.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's just not allowed. So that's what they're sort of claiming is done. But I mean, it seems kind of tenuous to me. What are they? They're in the thing and they're like just giving him money and like back rubs and putting his like what is just like I don't know. It seems a bit spurious to me. I think they probably just had dinner and probably had a bunch of McDonald's. Oh, that was another thing that's in the notes. Apparently the dinner wasn't very nice. But have you seen that thing of Trump like having McDonald's like in his first?
Oh yeah, with all these things eating McDonald's. I know he loves McDonald's.
Yeah. So I don't know. He's done this thing. What was more interesting to me though was Maxine Waters, one of our favourites on the show. She hates crypto and hates everything that Trump does. She's a staunch Democrat. She's launched a bill called the Stop Trading, Retention and Unfair Market Payoffs in Crypto Act 2025. And that has to do with this dinner and the whole meme coin thing. But basically, she wants no president or their family or the vice president or people very close to the president, that none of them can even hold crypto, let alone trade.
That's
or
outrageous,
yeah,
man.
so
Considering the whole Nancy Pelosi thing and her.
I know. I was literally trying to comparing this against what the restrictions are for trading traditional stocks. And the traditional stocks thing is they've got to announce 45 days ahead and what they're going to do and stuff like that. But yeah, her proposed bill is that they can't hold any crypto at all.
Right.
Which is, I don't know, it's one of those things. I don't know if it's just the technique when you do a bill, you do it way too far this way and then you negotiate it back this way. And
you get something.
It's like a haggling technique to make sure you might not, obviously you don't actually want what the first bill says.
The opening office here.
Exactly. So I imagine it'll get watered down if it actually goes ahead at all.
Yep.
It seems crazy to me that you should really treat crypto differently to stocks.
Yeah,
it should just be the same, right?
Mm.
It's just, you're allowed to take a punt on something as long as you don't have insider information. It's pretty basic.
Yep.
But yeah, anyway, that's also going ahead.
All right. Well, something closer to home then. So in Australia, an Australian Senator, Gerrard Rennick, predicted that Bitcoin would hit 1 million, but then called it a Ponzi. Okay. Yeah. But I don't even know. I'm not sure who Gerrard Rennick is.
He's a cooker.
He's a cooker, apparently.
The anti-vax conspiracy senator.
Oh, anti-vax, the conspiracy theory. Thanks. Okay,
usually those guys love Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Gerrard. Okay, so Gerrard is not a fan of Bitcoin. Well, maybe he's a fan of Bitcoin. Maybe he didn't say he doesn't like Ponzi's.
That's true. Maybe he loves Ponzi's even more.
Maybe he likes Ponzi's more than he likes Bitcoin. I don't know. He claimed BlackRock's buying would drive up prices into a supply squeeze. And then, so a bit more of the story. So this is reported in the AFR and bitcoin.com.au as well. The ABIB responded by calling out widespread crypto ignorance in Canberra. Australian ABIB?
Yeah, it's a Bitcoin-only industry body, I think.
Gotcha. Okay, I didn't know that acronym. Okay, cool.
Yeah, there's not much to say on this one. That guy's just looking for headlines. That's all I can really think about it. I mean, so he's calling it a Ponzi. Welcome to 2016.
I know.
We've kind of climbed that hill. It's not a Ponzi.
The thing is, he describes himself as a libertarian. So
yeah, okay. He hasn't done his research. We'll get him on the pod.
Yeah, I think calling Bitcoin a Ponzi is the first knee-jerk reaction. You go to anything you don't really understand.
Yeah, exactly.
It's tulips. It's been around for, it's clearly not. I don't think anyone listening probably buys into that anyway. All right, so now very close to home. So we've got in Portfolio Magazine, very own Lasanka Pereira made headlines. So Lasanka spoke around the rising legitimacy, the ETF approval, and regulatory clarity, which Independent Reserve has been focused on for over a decade now, good 12 years. And he sees long-term institutional interest continuing to drive mainstream crypto integration. And of course, LP Lasanka, or LP as we know him, is now based in running our Singapore team. He's been there for a couple of years now. And I think I've mentioned a few times, has gone strength to strength since he's been in there. But he's talking particularly about Singapore now that he's very much a local over there, as being very well positioned to lead the way in digital finance globally. All right, so any more sort of context on that around what's happening in Singapore?
No, I mean, Singapore, obviously we started that in 2019. It's been an incredible office. It's a huge financial hub. It's done really well. And yeah, I mean, so yeah, the 12 years is the IR as a whole, sort of to be clear. Singapore has been open for a bit less than that, but yeah, they have a good party over there.
They did. Sounds like they had a very good party for our two of you. And also as well, like one of the things about Singapore, I've been there sort of go once a year for the token. And so often I just feel like it would be great to sort of bring some of that Singapore sort of energy, and I don't know, there's a particularly in crypto, there seems to be a vibe over there because like we've talked about it so much time, and I know you see this on the desk a lot more than I guess people sort of generally in the Australian crypto scene would see, is that there's just so much more crypto for just BAU strategies. So we're seeing so much more businesses. They aren't crypto businesses. They aren't crypto native businesses. There's regular businesses, involved in payments and international finance, and they're just using crypto stable coins for the speed and accessibility of which it offers over traditional banking.
Yeah,
is that fair to say?
Definitely. Like there's much, the proportion of sort of speculative buying is much lower in Singapore because they are like using it in the way that we all wanted them to use it, which is, just in daily lives, and the people, their customers have no idea they're using crypto. I think it's just they're providing a good service and they can do it cheaper and faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess, kind of coming out of this, I mean, are institutions the real turning point for crypto adoption?
I think so. I mean, this was, what was it? The 2021 cycle was supposed to be the institutional cycle, right? I'm not sure if you remember, each cycle has their own.
Its own narrative, yeah.
Yeah, so the 2017 one was the retail mania. Then 2021 was supposed to be the institutional one. The most recent one was the ETFs, which is kind of institutional anyway for the most part. Yeah, so I don't know. Like I think obviously the general goal here is we get everyone using it. And it'll be top down, so institutions will start using it and people will be using it without realizing it.
Yeah, I mean, I really get the sense that this time, I mean, can I call it the regulation tailwind? There seems to be, this cycle seems to be really much about, but we're actually seeing it's like in 2021, I know there was a lot of talk about institutions coming to save everyone, but at that time, things hadn't really been institutionalized. It looked like it were, and certainly there's a lot of banks, the ETF felt like it was on the horizon, but it hadn't occurred yet. We just didn't see. And in quiet, it seems in a lot of ways, very much I can't say by stealth because everyone's aware of the ETFs. But there has been huge things like the Genius Act. These are all big pieces of legislation and whatnot that have gone through with relatively small amounts of fanfare, I'd say.
Yeah, it's not big news.
And the broad narrative, I don't feel like there's been a really overarching strong narrative around the current cycle other than the ETFs and Bitcoin specifically, institutional adoption continuing, but it just doesn't feel like a super strong narrative. But it's when you look at all the pieces and even stuff we've talked about today, clarity in Hong Kong, clarity in Singapore, clarity in the US, clarity in the Europe, Australia might even get its act together, relatively soon. Those the pieces are actually there. But still we're not seeing, I guess, necessarily, I don't feel like we've necessarily seen the tailwinds from all that stuff just yet, even though we're kind of seeing it on the ground day to day. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely. Yeah. I mean, and what are tailwinds in a predominantly stablecoin world? There's not really much, right? You look at the market cap.
Prices don't change. It's market cap, I guess.
Yeah. So, and no one really cares so much about market cap. It's marginally interesting. Everyone just wants to look at the Bitcoin number go up, and it will. But as we're sort of seeing recently, it's less for those reasons and more for, Trump backs down on a trade thing, or Japan starts looking shaky, so everyone starts, using it as a store of wealth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess we feel like there's more tailwinds yet to hit us, or the winds are brewing. Okay.
The winds brew.
The winds brew.
Do you want to tell your story?
Oh, my story. Oh, sorry, Jared. Yeah. Oh no. I had a banks. You know how? Well, I'll just tell it. Like basically, what happened was I tried to transfer money from a bank, from SMSF actually into the Independent Reserve, and I thought, I haven't had this happen before, but and I'd heard lots of horror stories, but this was my first probably actual personal example, because every previous time I'd tried to move money, I'd never really had a problem with moving money, small or large amount from my account. Look, I don't know if I should mention the bank, but they blocked my account, which automatically made me think, oh man, I'm going to get held up here, and I'm have to go into some pitch up battle with these guys to get a dollar sent through. And to the bank's credit, they asked questions and they ran through a lot of the stuff that I was aware of, like is someone else involved? Have you done your research? Are you aware of the finality of Bitcoin payments and sending money across, and scams and all this kind of stuff? But they were really sort of level-headed about it. Like, I definitely got the sense that they were like, okay, I don't know if they knew who I was and that I actually worked for the exchange and all this kind of stuff. Maybe they did know that, so they're kind of like, oh, this guy's probably okay. But the questions they asked were relevant to preventing scams. And once I gave answers, which is my usual answers, I've been buying Bitcoin since 2017, and I hold it on the exchange, and I'm pretty boring with it. I just buy Bitcoin, and I'm aware of all these risks. They said, "Yep, we'll get you on your way, no dramas," and kind of got it through. Which to me kind of was like, oh, I've been hearing some real horror stories, but my experience had been actually really quite positive. In that particular case.
Have you sent money before, like in
I have,
size?
yeah, I have. And this, I would say this transaction I sent was actually a little bit smaller than previous transactions I'd sent through where they hadn't held it up.
So they flagged your account for some reason, obviously. Maybe they'd run some kind of review and, held the money on withdrawal. Yep. Interesting.
And the call felt fairly routine, and the lady was super pleasant, and I gave, I guess, satisfactory answers. I don't even think I needed to volunteer that I work at the exchange I was sending it to, in terms of, when she was asking about whether I'd done my due diligence and whatnot, which just kind of flagged, as I said, this is my first personal experience we've had so many customers who talk about the banks being impossible. But look, my experience, at least in this one case, was actually that they were genuinely trying to, I guess, help. And if they were comfortable that knew what you were doing, they were more than happy to kind of process it.
So maybe we can just get all of our customers to send you money, and then you just send it to the...
Yeah. That will raise zero red flags.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So they can send... I was going to say send it to me in Bitcoin, but that defeats the purpose.
Yeah. We're not there yet.
Not there yet. Okay. Send me all your money.
I definitely send it on.
Yeah. Okay, Nick. We'll talk details later on. You can send me your money too. But thank you, that bank. Yeah.
For holding your money.
Well, no, thank you that you guys were okay. I totally understand why they got to be cautious. And I just, like I said before, the level of caution that they were showing wasn't okay. It was painful. If I had to do that for every transaction, it'd be okay. But the fact that they stopped and it wasn't so intrusive. Like I was expecting to. I guess my expectation was I was going to have to fight with them and not yell at them, but you know what I mean. Like really, be like, "You guys, this is outrageous. This is my money," and all this kind of, but it really wasn't like that at all. It was, they did what they needed to do to get the comfort that it was fine, and they said the risks on you, and we're not accepting the stuff, and which fine, and it sailed through. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for the next one. If they're like, okay, well, this guy's fine, we've already kind of whitelisted him or whatever. We'll see. But anyway, all right. Well, thanks, Nick. I think we've used up our time. Have we covered everything, Jared? What have we left off?
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Make sure to like and subscribe.
Subscribe.
And and by the way, looking sharp this week, Nick. I know you got a haircut.
Yeah, that's right. I told the hairdresser, I'm like, don't F this up.
You ruined my career.
I've got tens of followers.
Tens of followers. I'm looking a bit scruffy myself, so next time I'll lift up my game.
Yeah.
We got to 142. That's our record.
All right. All right. We had 100. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, viewers. Like our stuff. Jump on, subscribe. Really does help.
Any questions you have as well, please feel free to ask them before, after, during. We'll get to them and try and answer for you.
Okay.